How does it feel to have lived long enough to see all of your favorite franchises go down in flames?
Feels great.
I've been playing video games for as long as I can remember. I grew up on the PS2, the GameCube, the DS, the Wii, all in that order, but I didn't necessarily obsess over many video games as a kid. I definitely obsessed over video game franchises like Pokemon or Sonic the Hedgehog, but I didn't really begin obsessing over video games as a medium or even as a broad concept in any sense until my teenage years. So, what changed? Well, part of it was a game store opening up within walking distance of my house, which made buying used games with whatever pocket change I could scrape together way easier. But mostly it was the fact that I finally convinced my parents to buy me an Xbox 360, which was my first experience with
high-definition, hardcore games
that looked totally
real.
The Xbox 360 opened up windows, no pun intended, for me to see a new side of gaming that I had never experienced before. The gritty, realistic shooters, the vast open-world adventures, the quirky indie darlings. We all take it for granted nowadays, but for me, this was a brand new side of the gaming landscape to explore. For this reason, the Xbox brand carries a lot of sentimentality for me. I'm not some Xbox fanboy or anything, but part of me really wants to see it succeed, just to keep the legacy that got me into gaming alive and healthy. And well, Xbox is certainly alive for now, but it's not looking too hot. Many people in the gaming field at this point agree that Xbox is a shell of its former self. But how did they even let it get to this point? Well, the current state of Xbox isn't really something that you can boil down to one specific issue or recent event. The Xbox brand was built on a rocky foundation from the very start. Microsoft wasn't exactly a stranger to video games before the Xbox, having published games for PC before, like Microsoft Flight Simulator, which they've been consistently making new installments for since 1982, if you can believe it, and the classic civilization-building strategy game series Age of Empires, in which the best one is Age of Empires Mythologies on the DS. Fight me! With the hype around the PlayStation 2 claiming that the system could potentially replace home computers, Bill Gates himself felt that these home consoles could be a potential threat on their bottom line, and decided it was imperative that they start to compete in this emerging industry. Oh, and when I say the PS2 had hype, I mean publications treated this thing like it was the most powerful machine ever made, complete with the myth that Saddam Hussein was buying PS2s in bulk to build a nuclear supercomputer. I wish I was joking. So honestly, Microsoft's fears were somewhat understandable with that sort of marketing and those kinds of rumors. Luckily, they weren't entirely new to the console market at that point either. They also had a part in the development of another one of the PS2's competitors, the Sega Dreamcast. In fact, in many ways, the Dreamcast was sort of a proto-Xbox. It could run a custom version of Windows, it had built-in online functionality, and the controller sucked major. That being said, Microsoft's first reaction was not to make a new console from scratch, but it was instead to just try and buy the competition outright. Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom, went straight for attempting a buyout of Nintendo. These negotiations fell through almost instantly, leaving Microsoft to resort to Plan B.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Enter the DirectX box, named after Microsoft's proprietary programming interface of the same name, but it was later shortened to just Xbox. After its release in 2001, the original Xbox proved to be a decent success, not doing the record-setting gangbusters of the PS2, but still considerably better than the Nintendo GameCube.
The Nintendo Cube.
This success was thanks in no small part to its phenomenal software library. Fable, Oddworld, Crimson Skies, a partnership with Sega after the failure of the Dreamcast brought over games like Shenmue 2, Jet Set Radio, and Panzer Dragoon Orta. And even though Microsoft couldn't get Nintendo on their side, they ended up acquiring Rare, which brought over games like Grad by the Ghoulies and Conquer Live and Reloaded. And of course, there was the Xbox's killer app, Tron 2.0 killer app. No, wait, sorry, I mean Halo. I cannot stress this enough. Halo was why you bought an Xbox. I think it's easy to forget just how revolutionary Halo was, but to put it simply, it made console shooters good. Before Halo, aiming in first-person shooters was either done through lock-on features or by awkwardly strafing around enemies using the left and right bumpers. But Halo was the game to popularize twin-stick controls where you move and strafe with the left analog stick and look and aim with the right. All this isn't even going into the birth of Xbox Live, which let people play games with other people across the globe. It wasn't the first console to have built-in online functionality. That was the Dreamcast's SegaNet, which Microsoft actually also helped develop. But Xbox Live introduced the ability to have a singular profile across all games, along with voice chat, and the ability to party up with friends with the press of a button. They made online gaming feel like a big interconnected community like never before. The Xbox may not have been the best-selling console of the generation, but it set a massive precedent by managing to keep up with the big dogs of Sony and Nintendo. So many other companies have tried to enter the console market before Microsoft and failed. Philips CDI, Apple Pippin, Bandai WonderSwan. But the Xbox managed to pull through and make a serious impact with gamers with its vast library, online functionality, and general savvy business decisions from Microsoft behind the scenes. The Xbox was enough of a success that Microsoft decided to move forward to the development of a new follow-up console to compete with the PlayStation 3, the Xbox Next, or Nextbox, or Xenon? It took them a while to decide on the name, but eventually they settled on Xbox 360. It was called the Xbox 360 because it was a revolution in gaming. Pretentious marketing talk aside, while the Xbox was an underdog success story, the 360 was a runaway hit. Games like Gears of War, Dead Rising, Mass Effect 1, and of course Halo 3 pushed the 360 as the must-have console for the hardcore gamers out there. The introduction of achievements and gamerscore created a new level of social competitiveness to the online functionality, which even further solidified their push towards being a console for the true enthusiasts. That being said, the system wasn't without its faults. There was, of course, the infamous debacle of the Red Ring of Death. In an attempt to beat the PS3 to release, Microsoft kinda sorta fast-tracked the console's development and cut a few teensy-weensy corners in terms of quality control before pushing models out the door and onto shelves. These cut corners led to a ton of units getting shipped with something wrong with them. And when I say something, I really do mean something, because for years, not even Microsoft's own engineers knew what the problem actually was. Gamers everywhere would one day turn on their systems only to be greeted by 3 quadrants of the 360's power button glowing red, indicating a general hardware error. These 3 lights would be dubbed the Red Ring of Death by fans, because most of the time, those lights meant your Xbox was now just a big, fancy paperweight. This mistake ended up costing Microsoft billions of dollars to try and figure out what the problem was so they could fix it. As it turns out, the general hardware failure was caused by a combination of poor airflow in the machine and cheap solder being used on the motherboard that would just break over time from the rapid heating and cooling of the system. The Xbox 360 was literally cooking itself to death. Eventually, the 360 Slim would come out in 2010, which remedied all the issues people had with the base model. On one hand, it's commendable that Microsoft decided to put so much time and money into fixing the issue, but on the other hand, this problem could have been avoided by putting a little more money into research and development before launch. With all that said, I actually think it says a lot about the draw of the 360 that despite all its flaws, people still stuck with it and continue to love the system all the same. Its competitive price point, exclusive library, innovative social features, its frankly perfect controller that just feels so good in every sized hand, and its storefront with a focus on spotlighting independent developers made the 360 a wonderfully endearing system for all sorts of gamers, and brought people together in ways previously unheard of on consoles. Despite the Red Ring of Death fiasco, it's still safe to say the 360 was where the Xbox brand peaked, because it all goes downhill from here.
TV, 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 TV. Sports TV, TV, TV. Anybody? TV, TV, and TV, 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 TV. Xbox, go home.
May 21st, 2013 has gone down in history as the most important day in the history of Xbox, and not for a good reason. This was the day that Microsoft unveiled their brand new console, the Xbox One. It was called the Xbox One because it's an all-in-one system. Yes, the Xbox isn't just for lame old video games anymore. Now the Xbox One is the ultimate multimedia center where you can watch football, basketball, and the Halo TV show. Doesn't that sound like fun? This hour-long showcase was abysmal. It didn't really say a lot about the system itself aside from you can use it to watch TV. Which, I mean, I have Netflix installed on pretty much every game-based system I own that supports it, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna buy a video game console just to watch Breaking Bad. The only mention of video games at the showcase were for Madden and Call of Duty, the normiest of normie game franchises. But hey, I get it. They're popular games, but are they really the ones you use to show off the power of your new hardware? Well, of course they are, because look at this dog model, you guys! This dog model is so realistic! Look at the realistic dog! This is the most realistic dog in all of gaming! This is insane! Look at how realistic the crowd's looking! Mad! Wow! Both of these games came out on the Xbox 360, by the way. The poor initial reveal is only the tip of the iceberg, sadly, because there was so much lying just beneath the surface. First off, it was revealed that the Xbox One would have to connect to the internet at least once a day to, well, work. This immediately made it not a viable product for people with limited access to internet, which is actually the vast majority of people. Secondly, their motion control peripheral, the Kinect, was bundled with every launch model, which jacked up the price an extra $100. And finally, and most offensively, their bizarre and frankly callous attempt to squash the secondhand market. What they were proposing was when you install a game to your system, it would be bound to your account, and the disc would effectively become useless. You could transfer ownership of a game to someone, but only if they've been in your friends list for more than 30 days. This whole convoluted scheme was clearly an attempt to prevent used game sales so that you have to buy games brand new straight from the source. The backlash was swift and fierce, but luckily head of Xbox Don Matrick is here to clear the air.
We have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message. If you don't, like it.
If you have zero access to the internet, that is an offline device.
That was really bad.
Don Matrick left the company a month later. Now, eventually they would go back on pretty much all of these decisions. Except the Halo show, that one sadly did still happen. But the damage was already done. Microsoft had basically handed Sony all the ammunition they needed to market the PS4 as a pro-consumer alternative with a hardline focus on games and gamers first. As far as exclusives are concerned, contrary to popular belief, the Xbox One actually had quite a few. Sunset Overdrive was a fun and colorful 70s punk rock flavored zombie shooter. Killer Instinct was a fantastic reboot of the classic fighting game series. And despite having an absolutely awful story and being a total departure from previous games, Halo 5 still stands on its own as a really fun competitive shooter in its own right. But none of the games they released proved to be the heavy-hitting system sellers they needed. I mean, is anyone gonna run out and buy a new console for Recore? With all that said, the Xbox One did successfully carry a long and tenured tradition among its predecessors. See, the Xbox and Xbox 360 were great successes in Western markets, but in the East, and specifically in Japan, they were floundering. It was never from a lack of trying, though. They got a ton of popular Japanese developers to make exclusives for the systems. They got creator of Sonic the Hedgehog Naoto Oshima to create Blinks the Time Sweeper. They got Atlas to make an exclusive installment to Shin Megami Tensei. They even got Akira Toriyama and the original Final Fantasy creator Hironobu Sakaguchi to make an all-new JRPG in Blue Dragon. Sadly though, none of these attempts at breaking through to Eastern markets succeeded. But they were still leagues better than their attempts with the Xbox One. Crimson Dragon was an attempt at a spiritual successor to Sega's Panzer Dragoon series, and was even made by a lot of the original creators. Scalebound was an open-world action RPG being made by Platinum Games and directed by Hideki Kamiya himself. And Phantom Dust was a remake of a pretty unique card-based action game that was yet again made by the people behind Panzer Dragoon. Now, of those three, how many do you think actually came out? One of those games actually came out, and it was probably the one you've never heard of up until now. Crimson Dragon. Scalebound was canned by Microsoft after several delays. And as for Phantom Dust, we still don't fully know what the hell happened. All we know is Darkside, the company behind the remake, existed at one point, and suddenly one day they didn't. This isn't just a problem with their push for Japanese markets, though. Xbox has and continues to have immense trouble just getting their games out the damn door. Fable Legends was a co-op asymmetrical multiplayer game in the Fable universe that, despite development seemingly going fine with an open beta on the way, Microsoft cancelled and subsequently shut down Lionhead Studios. a major studio for the company with tons of IP and talent connected to it. But on the total inverse, you have the reboot of Perfect Dark, which was announced in 2020 to be in development by Crystal Dynamics and a brand new studio, The Initiative, which has been confirmed to be in development hell due to poor management and creative differences. Now, I don't want to be dismissive of the struggles of game development, but it's a first-person shooter! Activision craps these things out once a year. Pull it together and get it done. Now, if I were to guess, I would say that a lot of this poor management comes from this very hands-off approach that Phil Spencer has been cultivating over the years. Basically, just giving all of their studios full autonomy to do whatever they want. This is why we haven't gotten a new Banjo-Kazooie game, because, well, the people at Rare don't want to make it and instead want to support new IPs. But it's easy to look at this and realize that maybe they're being a bit too hands-off. In recent years, after the release of the Xbox Series S and X, it feels as though they've conceded to just not supporting any of their own legacy IPs and have instead resorted to just buying other companies and making their games exclusives instead. Double Fine, Obsidian, Ninja Theory, inXile, Bethesda, and of course, Activision. Activision specifically has proven to be nothing but headaches for the entirety of Xbox. In January 2022, Microsoft announced that they were in talks to purchase Activision Blizzard for $70 billion! Holy fuck! Immediately after the announcement that Microsoft would be merging their evil with Activision's evil to become the ultimate evil, the FTC began investigating the acquisition as a potential antitrust violation. As far as the FTC were concerned, an acquisition as huge as Activision Blizzard would effectively turn Microsoft into a monopoly, with some of the biggest titles in gaming under their belt potentially becoming exclusive to Xbox platforms. Which is funny considering Xbox used to have some of the biggest titles in gaming, but they did everything in their power to screw that up. But I digress. The FTC filed their suit in December 2022, and the case lasted until July 2023. But in just that short time frame, we started to see some pretty clear signs that there was trouble starting to brew underneath at Xbox. On March 31st, 2023, Microsoft laid off a grand total of 10,000 employees. Many of these layoffs greatly affected Xbox studios like Bethesda and 343 Industries. Which is fine, you know, they didn't need any help with like bug fixes or developing content for their live service or anything. It was becoming increasingly clear that the higher-ups at Xbox were putting more of their time and money, good lord, so much money, into the Activision and FTC suit that they were starting to neglect pretty much all of their other studios. And Redfall made this neglect abundantly clear. Released in May 2023 to severe backlash, Redfall was an open-world, co-op, survival, looter-shooter thing developed by Arcane Austin under Bethesda Game Studios. Arcane is a company more well-known for immersive sim types like Dishonored, the seriously underrated Dark Messiah, or the 2017 reboot of Human Head's Prey series. So this game was a pretty major departure for them, and it showed. The game was horribly panned by critics and gamers alike, to the point that Phil Spencer issued an official apology for how it turned out. Here's the thing though, while the project itself was pushed on Arcane by Bethesda's parent company ZeniMax, Xbox Game Studios were supposed to be the ones in charge of quality control. And while we're talking about Bethesda, in October of 2023, Pete Hines left his role as head of marketing and publishing at Bethesda Game Studios after 24 years at the company. While no reason was given, people theorized it had to do with Xbox's handling of Redfall, along with their seemingly double standards with how they treated Bethesda versus how they're currently treating Activision Blizzard. For example, after the Bethesda acquisition, they were told that future titles would have to be Xbox exclusives. Meanwhile, Activision was given the choice to publish on all platforms. While such double standards are most likely just to appease the FTC, it's still extremely unfair, and it makes sense why the head of publishing would be so frustrated by such a thing as to pack up and leave the company. Of course, the fun doesn't stop there. Oh no, you don't get off Mr. Spencer's wild ride that easily. In January of this year, Microsoft decided to give Activision and Xbox employees a late Christmas present in the form of 2,000 layoffs. Keep in mind, one of the promises Microsoft made to the FTC was that the acquisition would not result in downsizing. So
That was a lie.
but of course, it doesn't end there. May of this year saw the closure of 3 Bethesda-owned studios and the consolidation of Roundhouse Studios, formerly Human Head Studios, into the Elder Scrolls Online team. The closures included the aforementioned Arcane Austin, Alpha Dog Games, who worked on the Mighty Doom mobile game, and, most bafflingly of all, Tango Gameworks. The other 3 make a little bit of sense. Arcane Austin had only made 2 games on their own, with most of their work being support for Arcane Leon. Roundhouse had been relegated to a support studio for a while now, with their last work being on Redfall, so their consolidation isn't that unusual. And well, Alpha Dog was a mobile game studio, so not much of value was really lost.
I was just kidding! Come on! Come on! You guys know I was just kidding, right?
But Tango? This one is an entirely different beast, and it's caused quite an uproar online. Tango Gameworks was a studio founded by gaming legend Shinji Mikami, the mastermind behind classics like Resident Evil, Dino Crisis, God Hand, and Vanquish. Tango made games like Evil Within 2, Ghostwire Tokyo, and most importantly for this story, Hi-Fi Rush. Released in January last year, Hi-Fi Rush was a major success despite having little to no marketing from Xbox. It quickly rose from having a cult following to gaining major support from many mainstream outlets, even going as far as to be nominated for several awards and even winning Best Animation at the BAFTA Awards and Best Audio Design at the Game Awards. Tango Gameworks gave Xbox the most successful game they've had in years, and on top of that, they're a Japanese studio, meaning that Xbox finally had everything at their disposal to corner the Japanese market like they've been trying to ever since their conception. And what did Microsoft do after seeing this golden opportunity? They killed it. Not only that, they killed it because Tango dared to pitch a sequel. Because as we've seen today, history continues to repeat itself with this moronic company. A decade after killing a prestigious studio like Lionhead, here they are doing the same thing again. Time and time again, they miss the forest for the trees and prioritize immediate results over long-term success. Rush the console out to beat the competitor, don't bother testing it, it'll be fine. No exclusives? Just buy more studios or make their games exclusive, it'll be fine. The sequel to your highly successful award-winning game will take more time to come out? Guess we'll have to shutter your whole studio, but don't worry, I'm sure things will work out perfectly fine. It's nothing short of insane how inconsistent this company has become over the years. You can flounder for over a decade, ruining the reputation of their flagship title and they'll do nothing, but you make a new IP that is a genuine success and you're out of there. This inconsistency and short-sightedness has only become more significant in the wake of the Activision buyout. After spending $70 billion, you're gonna want to return on that investment as fast as possible, and with Overwatch 2 receiving considerable backlash, and Modern Warfare 3 being the worst received installment in years, it doesn't appear like that return will be happening anytime soon. And so, because of this highly irresponsible purchase of $70 billion, downsizing was sadly an inevitability, no matter what they told the FTC. It's truly baffling considering Bethesda was their last major purchase before Activision, but are now seemingly treated as the red-headed stepchild in favor of their new golden boy, with little to no oversight on projects and frivolous company closures despite performance. Heck, where was Microsoft while Bethesda spent 2 years working on a next-gen update for Fallout 4? Not a remaster, an update that still managed to come out buggy and unfinished because it was rushed out the door to meet the release of the Fallout show. It all really makes you wonder, what does the future of Xbox even look like at this point? Is there a future of Xbox? Because it seems like they're putting all their eggs in the Game Pass basket at this point, but new adopters have been steadily declining for a while now. It's funny to think that Microsoft's leap into the console market began with the Dreamcast, considering how that system also turned out. A lack of meaningful exclusives, spending years testing the faith of their core fanbase, and a severe lack of forward thinking. It all seems so prophetic. The last thing I want is for Microsoft to go third party, because that would effectively give Sony a monopoly over the console market, and I have my own list of problems with how they treat developers on that platform. But at this point, I can't see it going any other way. Microsoft has a history of shuttering projects that aren't immediately profitable. There's a whole website called Killed by Microsoft that lists all the projects and companies they've shut down. The Halo games most likely saved the original Xbox from ending up on this list, but I believe it's only a matter of time before Microsoft decides it's time to retire from the gaming hardware market. Because that's the thing. At the end of the day, Microsoft is a software company first. Outside of the Surface Pro tablets, every other attempt at producing hardware has been either a total failure or a lukewarm success at best. Remember the Windows Phone? I didn't think so. It would make sense if they just retired the Xbox brand and started publishing games on the other systems, with the furthest they go into gaming hardware being some super powerful gaming-focused Surface tablet that comes with a free trial of Game Pass or something. We're already seeing signs of this being the case, as in an interview with IGN, an unnamed former Xbox employee was quoted as saying,
"I had lengthy conversations with a bunch of Xbox founders, and we all came to the same conclusion. It's no longer Xbox, but Microsoft's gaming."
With Microsoft already seeming willing to put former exclusives like Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush on their competing platforms, I'd say it's very possible that they might be going the same way as Sega before them. It's a meme on my channel to compare the likes of Halo and Sonic, but I never considered it getting to this level. It might be inconceivable to think of Halo on a PlayStation now, but people thought the same thing when they saw Sonic Advance and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle sitting on store shelves back in 2001. And just a shelf over, they would have seen a brand new copy of Halo Combat Evolved for the hottest new console to come out that same year. History is a lot like poetry sometimes. It doesn't always repeat itself completely, but it certainly rhymes. Even when you wish it didn't. Okay, hey there Pyromaniacs, this is the outro. I'm done with college, and that's how this video managed to come out. Sorry for being gone for 5 months, but I'm back now and I'm ready to keep making videos. So, with all that said, thanks for watching. If you like this video, leave a like and become a pyromaniac yourself by subscribing. Until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.